This is the Bible Show. Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Bible Show. My name is Sam. Joining me today is Will. And Will, we are bringing the book of Genesis in for a landing today. It's going to be our last episode on Genesis.
It's honestly kind of sad.
It is.
I mean, it just kind of feels like a weird breakup. You know, we've been in these guys' lives for close to a year now, each and every year. I thought about Joseph as a person, as a biblical person, probably almost as much as Jesus at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it is you grow close with these guys, and like you're watching them go from messy characters to redeemed, and today's going to be this beautiful day of even more redemption and love in the family, and you watch these guys die and be buried in the way that they're honored, and we'll get into that as we go, but it really is like it's hard to say goodbye to this chapter of the book.
And with that end, we do have to start something after this. So I know you and I have been talking about Exodus, but comment, say where you want to go. If you have thoughts for us, let us know, because we'd love to, because as of right now, it's still up in the air.
Yeah. And even if we do move into Exodus and just keep marching along, like it would be helpful for us to know what it is that people are most interested in learning about. So even if we don't go where you want us to go, it'll be helpful for us to kind of chart a path wherever we're going after the next one. So please do that. So we're jumping in today to Genesis 49 and 50. We're going to do 2 chapters today. There's blessings, there's the funerals, we got all that kind of wrapping up the book of Genesis. And we're not going to do the big review today just because
it's too much.
I'm exhausted with that. Like I can't get it out apparently within acceptable time frames. But in the last chapter, we'll just do that. We see Jacob who's granting the double portion to Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. He's going to be honored, right? So when they go and they get their tribal allotments into the land, you have Ephraim, Manasseh. You won't have a tribe of Joseph because Jacob said, I'm going to treat your 2 sons as my 2 sons. And in other words, you get the double portion of the inheritance. So the first ones to get a blessing are actually Jacob's grandsons that are now treated as his sons. And we start this chapter 49, with him being like, okay, now that they're taken care of, the double portion is laid down. Now let me bring in my biological first generation sons, the 12 of them, and speak a divine blessing over them.
And kind of just a question about blessing always comes up. Kind of just talk about the general overall of why did this take place? What does it mean? Because this is something like we don't do nowadays.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing where they would come and this is almost like a prophetic word. Like he's going to lay down blessings, which when we hear blessings, we think, oh, this is going to be wonderful and, great. Like about half of these are going to be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, be prepared to hear things that you're like,
why would you speak this over your son? Which gives you the impression that Jacob is not just making it up, because you wouldn't say, your future is going to be bleak, to any of your kids. But it's going to play out throughout the story of Scripture that it's not just these characters that either receive this blessing or this negative news, but it plays out in their descendants as we'll see.
Like the tribe as a whole.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So when you're laying down, like for example, the first one's going to be Reuben. It's not great, right? But you see play out that the tribe of Reuben for the future, not great. Like they have this blessing extends to the tribe as well.
Okay, that's helpful to think about.
So the same thing with Judah, like the line of Judah is going to be the one that leads to the Messiah.
But it's not right after Judah. So
it's not for Judah necessarily. It's for Judah and his descendants ultimately leading you to Christ.
Okay.
And so that's where we start. That it says in verse 1, then Jacob called his sons and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you what shall happen to you in the days to come. Assemble and listen, O sons of Jacob, listen to Israel your father. Like, is there anything that jumps out at you in that first couple of verses?
Again, that classic Jacob-Israel switch of like, it seems like it just happens.
Yeah. So, but I love that there's like a redemptive element to this, because he's saying, hey, sons of Jacob, all you knuckleheads that inherited my scheming DNA and everything else.
Like when I was a dirtbag creating you dirtbags.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But then he says, listen to Israel, your father. So then he invokes this covenant name that God has redeemed. And so it's like, come to me, sons of Jacob, with all your mess, and let Israel now deliver a divine word over you. Which, by the way, all of these sons, their names are going to be commemorated in heaven. So you're assuming you're going to see each and every one of these 12 in heaven. even though they come with all kinds of baggage, and even though their blessings aren't, some of them aren't great, like heaven's architecture is labeled with their names. I think they're going to be there, right? I think that's a safe assumption. But again, right out of the gates, you have Jacob and Israel laying out what has been a pattern of redemption. So the first one he starts with is Reuben. He says, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first fruits of my strength. What does that mean? You're the first one I ever poured into. Like, you're the first fruits of everything I have. Preeminent in dignity, preeminent in power. You had it all. Like, it was just laid up for you. You were the one that was given the pole position, like ready to go. Could have been great. And then verse 4, unstable as water. What a comment. Like, what a great comment, by the way.
That stings so hard for 3 words.
Unstable as water. What does water do?
It fills whatever you put it in.
It goes wherever it's always going to find a way. It's like shapeless. It won't hold itself. It has to be constrained by the outside, because water by itself just is chaotic. It just does what it has to be within the banks of a river. It has to be within a cup, because left to itself, it's just wild and you don't know what it's going to do. It always goes wherever it wants. And so you shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed. So this is referring back into chapters and chapters ago,
the incident
where Reuben takes his father's concubine. And that was, if we remember, that was a sign of, I am essentially trying to stage a coup with Bilhah, your maidservant. And so you went up into your father's bed, you defiled it. He went up into my couch. And so, like, this is a kind of a sad thing. He's like, man, you had it all. Like, everything was given to you. And because you could not control your impulses,
you ruined it.
That's going to become a generational thing for you. And now your future is going to be defined by that instability. You'll always have this incredible potential, but you squander it. And, like, do you know people that have these incredibly stunning gifts, but they squander them because they can't control their impulses?
Yeah.
Do you feel any of that in yourself?
Yeah, in seasons for sure.
Yeah. But that's essentially what Reuben is doing. And the scriptures come, like, it's amazing how much of callings and ministry and others, how much centers around self-control. You can have the most gifted people in the world, and if they lack that self-control, if they're unstable as water, they always end up as these stunning crashes and flaming balls of explosion that bring scandal to the church. Yeah. And it's like, the most important thing about a shepherd or a pastor is not that they're incredibly gifted, right? Yeah. It's why we want to say, oh, they're a great teacher, they're so smart, amazing preacher, they're so gifted, the anointing is on them. But if they don't have self-control, they ultimately bring the church into shame, scandal, right? There's a reason why in 1 Timothy 3, listen to this. These are the high bar for pastors in a church. It says, the ability to teach is just one of many necessary qualifications. Listen to this. He's the husband of one wife. In other words, you're not Jacob. You don't have 4 women. You're sober-minded. Hear these words: self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach one thing. There's just one.
It's one act of talent, yeah.
Not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must not be a recent convert that hasn't been stabilized with sanctification and everything else. So what do you hear in that? Like, one of the biggest qualifications for success in ministry is
character.
The giftings, important, but not unless you have character. And so Reuben's big problem, he's unstable. Like, he goes a while, he's great, and then boom, all of a sudden he'll do something that wrecks it, and that trait is going to be passed down to future generations. And so you see the tribe of Reuben quickly fades from prominence. By Judges 5, when Deborah's leading Israel in a great military victory, Reuben's like, I'm not doing it. So he sat still, great searchings of heart. All the other tribes are fighting for independence and doing good, but Reuben is choosing the selfish path, and almost out of the gates, Reuben will do nothing of consequence in the Bible. Like, can you name a major figure in the Bible that comes from the tribe of Reuben?
No, not a lot of Reubenites running around.
There's not. And so, like, incredible. In fact, their most famous descendants are 2 guys named Dathan and Abiram, who helped to lead Korah's rebellion, and they get judged by God. Like, Reuben doesn't contribute a lot of great things, sadly, right?
Yeah.
Next one, verse 5. Simeon and Levi. Now, why link them together? Everybody else gets one blessing,
I
right?
feel like they did everything together. I just feel like they're kind of connected at the hip.
But what is their most famous act they did together? They went.
Genocide of Shechem.
That's right. Shechem. That sounds, anyway, yeah. But here, these are the brothers that went and slew everybody and came up with a scheme at Shechem. So verse 5, it says, Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. And so who's the famous people that come out of the Simeon tribe? Womp, womp. Like you get Zimri, who's a Simeonite prince who was murdered for immorality. That's probably the most famous guy that I can pull
Never
up.
even heard of that guy, so.
Right? But not great.
No.
But then you get Levi. Now you're talking. This one is the one where, good grief, the number of famous people that come out of Levi.
Well, because isn't that the priest tribe?
Yeah, this is the priest tribe. So you get Moses, you get Aaron, you get Miriam, you get Zechariah, you get John the Baptist, right? You do get Caiaphas and the ones who wanted to put Jesus to death, but this is a tremendously important tribe. And one interesting thing here, the word there that is used for swords is unique in the Hebrew. It's mekarot, and it's not like the typical, like I'm going into battle with a sword. It's not that word. It's a word that you can hear it, karot. It's karat, which is the Hebrew word for to cut a covenant or to cut something. And so they think that these might have been the things that were used for circumcision, right? So now hear that. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their circumcision sharp instruments. Does that sound familiar? What did they do? How did they perform their genocide?
They made Shechem all get circumcised.
They made them all get circumcised, and while they were wounded and unable, they slaughtered them all. And so they're saying weapons of violence are the instruments that they use to bring forth covenant, right? They use religion as weapons. But now Levi is going to be redeemed in this because Levi, again, is going to be the ones that do the circumcisions. They're going to be the ones who do the sacrifices at the temple. They're going to be the ones who use those swords to bring about worship. And so their line ultimately, in a lot of ways, is redeemed. Simeon, mama. And the other thing is they don't get territories, not impressive ones, right? So where does Levi settle? They don't get a territory. They're scattered all over. They get sanctuary cities and stuff like that, but they don't get a big plot of land like Judah or Reuben. They're just scattered because you have to have priests in all the different places. And Simeon gets such a shameful location that it's actually entirely contained inside of Judah. So it would be like, I'm going to give you a state surrounded by Florida. Like, what? And so they become basically an insignificant tribe that's swallowed up.
That makes sense that Levi, I was just doing the math when Joseph's two sons each get a blessing. Like someone has to lose something.
Yeah. So that's going to be Joseph. He doesn't get his own. His sons do. And Levi.
Okay, that makes
sense. So those are the two subtracted. So verse 6, he's going on, let my soul not come into their counsel, Levi and Simeon. Oh, my glory, be not joined to their company. You're like, ouch. For in their anger they killed men, and in their willfulness they hamstrung oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. You hear that? I mean, that's basically what happens. They're not going to get prominent lands to do things. But Levi's going to produce the teachers. They're going to produce the priest. You get Moses and Aaron again that basically give the law at Sinai. And so then we get to the fourth son, verse 8. This is the messianic line.
So we're hopeful.
Right? Now we finally get a good blessing here. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Now, remember, this is Jacob saying this. Who is supposed to get the brothers bowing down to them? Joseph. But now here you have Jacob saying to Judah, your brothers are going to bow down to you. In other words, you're now going to share in this. Your descendants are going to receive the blessing that Joseph's dreams were pointing to him. They're going to have their brothers bow down to him. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion, as a lioness who dares rouse him. And so here you get this like ferocious, like courageous warrior tribe that's noble like a lion, the king of the beast, right? And out of this, you get the kingly tribe.
Yes.
You're going to have Jesus, obviously, David, Solomon, Hezekiah, Josiah, Jehoshaphat, all the kings of Judah. This is the crown jewel of all of Jacob's blessings. It's the messianic line. And it shows, like, Judah, even though he was every bit as wicked as all of his brothers, maybe more so, is chosen. What set him apart from his brothers? What did he do better than any of them?
I think he repented.
That's it. Yeah. So he repented and he was willing to lay his life down for his brothers. And in terms of character, that is the only thing that jumps out from him where you see God going, this is the one I want leading to my son. And you see all the imagery that's going on here. A lion. Can you think of who the lion is in Scripture?
Jesus.
Jesus is the lion of the tribe of Judah. The scepter for the king, wine, garments washed in blood, right? So it's royalty. But by the way, if you have garments washed in blood, there's a lot of stuff going on here. But what will garments washed in the blood of grapes look like?
Like blood?
Yeah. But what color garments?
Purple. Like
which would
reddish.
Crimson, which is who wears that? Royalty, right? So we'll get further into that in a minute. But in Revelation 5:5, when it's talking about not just who's going to be the Messianic king, but in Revelation it talks about who is the one who's going to unfurl the scroll of redemption. Who can play this out? Who can reveal who is saved? And it says, I saw a mighty angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals. Nobody can bring this about. The decree of God bringing this to fruition in reality. Nobody can make it happen. No one in heaven and earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look into it. And I began, this is John speaking, the apostle, and I began to weep loudly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look into it. And one of the elders said to me, weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. And I love that it's the root of David, which means even though he came after David, he's the root, he's before David. And he's the one who unfurls redemptive history. And Jacob goes on in this blessing. He says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until tribute comes to him. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. The word there is nations. Like, this is not just a king for the Jews. This is not just a king for the Israelites. All nations under heaven will owe their obedience and tribute to him. This is a global king, which is a wild prophecy for Jacob to lay down. It's not just, the brothers bowing down. This is all nations are going to come and bow down.
Yeah, and these are wild, and we have more information than they had. Could you imagine getting this as Judah being like,
yeah,
let's unpack that.
Yeah.
But what does that mean?
It's wild. The Hebrew word here, this is where we get Shiloh first mentioned. When it says until tribute comes to him, the word there is Shiloh. And a lot of people in the old times, they would say that meant savior, but it also means to be at peace. You hear kind of the same root as shalom, Shiloh, to be at peace or to be settled. In other words, until peace comes, settled. Nobody's contending for power because it's obvious who the king is. That's the idea here. Everything belongs to him. And it's all settled here. And Shiloh's also, I don't think this is what he's talking about, but Shiloh's also a city where the tabernacle was for centuries, where God dwelled with the people before David. And so it says binding his foal. So he's still on Judah. Binding his foal. What's foal? Do you know what a foal is?
An animal.
It's a baby
donkey.
Horse. Yeah.
Okay.
And so binding his foal to the vine, his donkey's colt. What's a donkey's colt? It's a baby donkey, right? It's a male, right? So why does he keep bringing up the young? Like it's a baby horse and a baby donkey tied up to vines, the choice vines. Why is he saying this? What are all those images? Babies, vines. What is?
It needs growth.
It's all life. Abundance, right? In the ancient world, fertility is a big thing. You wanted your crops to grow. You wanted your animals to grow. You wanted all of that blessing. And what this is saying, like this line of Judah, wow, is it going to produce life? Like the baby foal's coming, the baby colt's coming, and it's with vines that are just absolutely luxurious. He's washed his garments in wine, which in the ancient world, we hear something different there. but it means wine is so abundant. Like it is so prosperous. It is so absolutely flourishing that wine, which is a luxury, it's like water. Like you wash your clothes in water. Judah, he's washing his stuff in wine because, I mean, it's just as plentiful as the idea, right? Now, when we hear that, what is in the scriptures, what is wine always compared to? Even here, and his vesture in the blood of grapes, right? So he's washing his garments in wine and his vesture in the blood of grapes. What is that? Wine is blood and communion. You take the cup. Well, the wine is representing blood, right? And this cleanses. Like, you hear that? Like everything, new life, new life, new life. The blood is bringing forth the cleansing. His eyes are darker than wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. What does that mean? When you have dark eyes, it means you're not aged. You know how when people get older, they'll get cataracts, their eyes get kind of cloudy and foggy looking? No. His eyes are darker than wine. Like he's got healthy looking eyes. His teeth are whiter than milk. When someone looks really unhealthy, and like an unhealthy smile, their teeth are rotted and everything else. He's like, no. Teeth whiter than milk. This tribe is going to bring forth abundance of life, cleansing, prosperity, super health. They're going to stay young and vibrant. There's so much life in the line of Judah. That's the idea going on here. All right, so then you get to verse 13, and now Jacob goes out of order because he's continuing Leah's sons, even though there was a break in the order after Leah. He says, Zebulun shall dwell at the shore of the sea. He shall become a haven for ships, and his border shall be at Sidon. Now,
great, awesome.
It's just a good one, but it's like, they're a little bit inland from all these major trade routes. They're going to be, blessed in a position for tremendous wealth. Verse 14, Issachar is a strong donkey. Okay, great. Crouching between the sheepfolds. He saw, now let me explain what that means. Like, what it's saying is Issachar is going to be a people who have an incredible work ethic. They're going to have tons of labor, but they don't fight. They don't stand up they're going to crouch. So what a sheepfold is, and it's literally like saddlebags is what this means, is they have saddlebags over them. So they're working, but then when the moment comes, they crouch. And that's it's evoking the image of a donkey with tremendous possessions lying down with saddlebags keeping them down. And so what happens with Issachar is they don't fight for their liberty. They're easily subjugated. They're enslaved by foreigners, but they work like crazy. They're agrarian laborers, but they're politically passive. Verse 16, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan, so notice that judge, because one of the most famous judges emerges from the tribe of Dan, and it's probably the most scandalous of the judges too, or one of them.
Samson.
Old Samson, nice. He comes from the tribe of Dan, but he's going to be tremendously famous for his faith. And, he's like so many of the sons of Jacob, he's like a scoundrel who ultimately in the end gets redeemed. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a viper by the path. And you're like, wait,
sounds bad.
Yeah, I don't love that. That bites the horse's heels so that his rider falls backward. And so then he ends this kind of intermission where he says, I wait for your salvation, O Lord. So he gets done talking about Dan being something that makes, the riders fall backwards and it's not great on the path like it's the serpent. Dan is going to introduce idolatry to Israel. Judges 18:30, they're the ones who are like the floodgates come in. They're one of the places where Jeroboam builds the golden calf, where people are being led into idolatrous worship. He builds one up in Dan of those calves. It's idolatrous worship in the days of Amos. When Amos is prophesying, it's like he's pointing up at Dan, being like, you are the idolaters. They're among the first ones to be conquered and lost to history by the Assyrians that come through from the north. And so after Jacob is saying, like, this is your future, it's like he goes, I wait for your salvation, O Lord. It's like he's taking a break in the middle of the blessings to be like, oh my goodness, like salvation has to come from you, God. Verse 19, we jump to the next son. Raiders shall raid Gad.
Oh, right? A good start for you.
Not great, but he shall raid at their heels. And so by tradition, Elijah is from Gad. right? And also Jephthah. But the idea is people will come during their days and they will just pound the mess out of Israel and their people. But these are always the ones who get the last minute comeback, right? So they're raided, but then they raid at the enemy's heels. Like they ultimately get them in the end. And so that would make sense of Jephthah and Elijah, right? And this is going to be a place that's constantly under attack later on. You see they're attacked by the Moabites, the Gadites are, Ammonites, the Arameans, the Assyrians face them. But this tribe is going to be known for producing some of the very best warriors in all of Israel. Like, they can be overwhelmed, but they come back and win. They fight like crazy. So 1 Chronicles 12:8 says this, from the Gadites, there went over to David at the stronghold of the wilderness, mighty and experienced warriors, expert with shield and spear, whose faces were like the faces of lions and who were swift as gazelles upon the mountains. These are like your Navy SEALs of the 12 tribes. Next one, Asher. This is the blessing that's like, I would be good with this one. Asher's food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal delicacies. Period. Moving right along. How would you like that one?
Great after some of the other ones.
Right?
Like if
Like-
that's the only one and you don't know what's out there, good or bad,
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah.
By this point, the sons are like, uh-oh, like, what's mine going to be?
They're thinking, what do we do to Dad?
But Asher, which the name itself means like happy, his food is going to be rich, and it shall yield royal delicacies. Like, this is, the territory includes Mount Carmel up through London. It's lush, if you remember that whole area. Like, you're getting into the better.
Okay, so delicacies is more of a general word than like when I hear that, I think of like sweets.
Well, yeah, it's going to be a place where you get, lots of grain, olives,
Okay.
wine is produced in this region with quite a bit of abundance. It's remarkably fertile. It's got, rich soil, abundant rainfall. Like, if you get down to the south, nothing. The further north you go in Israel, the more green it gets, the more water you find. And also, I think the further west, you get some sense of that too, as you get closer to the Mediterranean. And so it's going to benefit from Mediterranean trade. Like, Asher just gets a sweet deal. It's not next to foreign enemy neighbors. Like,
You're
it's
not
just
fighting all the time. It's just like, have a good time.
yeah, Lebanon's not bothering people too much. You're not to the east where you're getting the Arameans and the Assyrians. So they're pretty good position. Naphtali is a doe let loose that bears beautiful fawns. So this is going to be, Naphtali is the place up in Galilee. So this is going to be where Jesus does most of his preaching along the Sea of Galilee. And a doe there is like 2.5 feet. It's talking about a very, very small deer in all likelihood. Very tiny in a region. And it's like, if you ever watch them move, they're like gracious and eloquent and quick and speedy and darty, but they're small and cute. And the word here, when it says Naphtali is a doe let loose that bears beautiful fawns, it's a homonym with beautiful words. It could be translated either way. And so what's interesting is what happens in Galilee. In Naphtali, you get the Savior of the world who comes with his parables and preaching ministry. And so this is a region of beautiful words. Okay, maybe. Deborah, by the way, comes from this region when she sings songs and praise and prophecy, like beautiful words. So then we get to Joseph in verse 22.
Here it is.
Any questions yet?
No?
As we're kind of like ramming through these. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. Like, he's abundant. You can't contain his levels of blessing. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, and harassed him severely, yet his bow remained unmoved. This guy was unshakable, which is true of both Joseph, and it carries forward. He won't have a tribe except for his 2 sons. His arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. By the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that crouches beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father are mighty beyond the blessings of my parents, and up to the bounties of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph, and on the brow of him who is set apart from his brothers. So that's a pretty solid blessing. Like, if you're Joseph, you're feeling good about that. It's the longest of all the different blessings that are recorded. He's from his line, Ephraim, you'll see Joshua. you'll see Samuel. Manasseh, you'll get Gideon through Manasseh. So you've got some major figures that come through the line of Joseph. And in Joseph, he's also compared to in Deuteronomy 33, when Moses gives the blessings, he's compared to a firstborn bull. He has majesty, and his horns are the horns of a wild ox. And so one of the things I love about this blessing that's associated with Joseph is in all the other blessings, you don't have a lot of mentions of God.
Yeah, it's very God heavy.
Very God heavy. The mighty one of Jacob, the shepherd, the stone of Israel, the God of your father, almighty. Like, it keeps referring like this son is rooted in the Lord. He was faithful to the Lord, and the Lord will bless him for it. All right. So do you remember, as we're going through all these, you're getting lots of different images. You know, you got Reuben, who's likened to water, Judah, that's likened to a lion. You've got Zebulun, who's a ship, and Dan's a snake, and Naphtali is a deer or a doe. When you jump to Deuteronomy chapter 33, you'll see, like we talked about, Joseph is likened to a bull or an ox. Benjamin is likened to two hills. Asher is compared to oil from an olive tree. And I want to show you an image. This is a seal. So a seal is like it used to be like a round thing that you would wear a necklace around your neck, and then you would roll it over clay or wax or something to be this, like, this is the impression of our household that is our authority, right? Do you remember the name of this town where we theorized like the pyramid was of Joseph? There's evidences of an obsession with 12. It looks like this is right in the middle of Goshen. This is the place where Joseph and his brother settled. Do you remember the name of that?
Is this Avaris?
Avaris, right. So this is where archaeologists have uncovered it. They found all kinds of really, really cool things that point to Joseph. Well, in there, they also found this seal, this impression. And so when you look at this, what do you notice on this? Like, what kind of creatures do you see here? Because I look at it and I see, well, gee, there's an ox.
It's definitely a lion.
Right? You see a lion, there's Judah. You see the ox, there's Joseph. You've got a guy holding a scepter in it, which is, or a mace, which is interesting. He's standing on two hills. There's Benjamin. You got a snake, there's Dan. You've got a ship. I mean, like, you're going through all these different images. And some of these, I can't make sense of what's going on, But in this, it's like, gee, this seal that is discovered in Avaris has all these random creatures just thrown together on a seal. Like, maybe it's not the 12 tribes. Maybe this is not what it's reflecting. But man, what a coincidence to have all of these creatures and symbols thrown together. Because, you know, obviously Moses comes later, right? So Deuteronomy is going to be written after they leave Egypt. But what if they'd already had these identities? What if Joseph was already likened to the ox, and Moses is like, yep, that's the ox tribe, you know? And then on this seal, you see all these images come together. I just think that's a fascinating nod.
And the ox would be an obvious one for him as the guy who grew grain for 7 years, and oxens were the one who tilled the fields.
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting. I mean, all these things kind of come together. I think this might very well be a nod toward the 12 tribes that we see on a seal of authority that's a familial household seal, and it's in Avaris. Like, fascinating to me. I mean, I wouldn't bet my salvation on it.
But it feels closer to that than not.
But man, that's interesting. It's worth knowing about. So then we get to Benjamin. And his isn't on the seal, by the way, which is interesting. And maybe it's in the broken off part, but we don't see him there. Benjamin, what kind of if this is Jacob to Benjamin, what kind of a blessing are you waiting? Like, this is Jacob who's, Benjamin, I can't let Benjamin out of my sight.
Like sweet and tender almost, I would feel like it would be. Like,
yeah.
It feels like he bubble wrapped Benjamin his whole life, even though he was a grown man, which is still confusing, but it seems like he took the most care of Benjamin.
Yeah, which means you're expecting Benjamin to be this really kind of soft, yet listen to this one. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. What?
Different out of the gates?
Not what I would have guessed. Not what I would have guessed at all. It says, in the morning, hang on to that, he's devouring the prey, and at evening, he's dividing the spoil. So at first, if I came up and I said, you're a ravenous wolf.
That would be mean.
That's not great. I don't want that. I'm not a ravenous wolf. But at first, this sounds like an awful blessing. But then, like last night, I never knew this before until last night. I went and I started doing like YouTube, like, how do wolves feed, like a ravenous wolf? This is what I learned. Did not know this before. a wolf, when they have young pups, because I was wondering, like, what does it mean in the evening they divide the spoil? A wolf, when it hunts and it has young pups, will eat the prey. They'll kill it as a pack. They attack. They eat the prey. They go back to their den or whatever, and they have the young. And then the young, and this happens all over the place. Like you can watch it. It's pretty gross. But the young pups will come and lick the mother's face, right?
Okay.
And that triggers the mother to then vomit up, like a bird, like feeding the young, vomit up this semi-digested carcass, that they've been eating on. And then the young have tenderized meat that they then eat. And so now, if that's the case here, what's this describing? Because now it makes more sense. A ravenous wolf in the morning devouring the prey, at evening dividing the spoil. Well, what would make sense of that? Like, here's something: a wolf goes out, hunts in the morning, devours in all of its ravenous appetite and everything else. Yeah. But then later on,
gives it to
dividing the spoil. So, I mean, it doesn't, otherwise, like, how would you make sense of this? I think that's it. So in a weird way, like, you don't want to be called a ravenous wolf, but what's the motive going on here? This is noble motives to feed the young, to divide the spoil at the end. And so there's this mix going on. In the morning, at the beginning, not great. They're ravenous, they're attacking, they're vicious. But why? They're going to feed. From what they get out of that viciousness, they're going to vomit it up. And in a sense, like in a weird way, that is the story of Benjamin. We talked about this in a previous episode. Like, how does Benjamin start in the scriptures? Not great. Like, you're going to see Benjamin, King Saul harassing David. You see, the Genesis or Judges 19, you see the apostle Paul, who starts out from the tribe of Benjamin as Saul. They devour all this stuff, but then in the end, you have the apostle Paul that then feeds the church. Maybe, I mean, that's probably a stretch, but that's the way that the rabbis noted that morning and evening is referring to when they're young, they're impulsive, they devour, but in the evening, in the later years, they use all the stuff that they've gained by bad ways to then feed the next generation. And that kind of fits with the tribe of Benjamin in a lot of ways throughout the story of Scripture. All right, so those are the blessings. Kind of hard to get through in an entertaining way. Hopefully that made sense. But all these, it says, verse 28, all these are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them as he blessed them, blessing each with the blessing suitable to him. All right, so how do you feel about all that?
Feels suitable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels on par.
Surprising mix.
And it feels like Jacob finally talked about some things that it felt like you guys didn't talk about it when this happened in kind of a weird way.
Feels like he's getting some stuff off his chest, but also like the Lord is giving him these blessings as well. So verse 29, it says, then he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephraim the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field at Machpelah, to the east of Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephraim the Hittite to possess as a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. Because this is the first time you hear that Leah's died. And where does he choose to bury her?
At the family.
That's a big deal. Like Rachel gets buried, up or close to Bethlehem. He buries Leah in the family plot. Like when they're looking forward to the resurrection, he's like, I want to be raised from the dead next to her. So it's like, is this the first time that he's really genuinely honored her with something that's superior to Rachel, and it's a burial plot? But it's cool. Like even that in this story is ultimately redeemed at the end. Like here you see him finally loving his wife. And it says the field and the cave that is in it were bought from the Hittites. So Jacob here does not want to be buried in Egypt. That's a profound major statement. Because the Egyptians, most of them didn't believe that you could have an afterlife if you were buried outside of Egypt. And he's like, stake in the ground. I believe in the God of my fathers. I want to be buried with them. I don't want to partake in Egyptian mythology. I reject all of its idolatry. I reject all of its beliefs. And he wants to be buried there. And so this is like, I love how Genesis wraps all of this up, and there's so many like little stories of reconciliation all wrapped in this kind of closing section. So we see Jacob reconciled with Leah. We see Jacob reunited with Joseph after decades of mourning. We see Jacob reconciled with his 10 older sons after decades of dysfunction. We see Joseph and Benjamin reconciled with their brothers. We see Benjamin and Joseph reunited. Countless lives spared for Egypt, Israel, and the world. Like, everything comes together in this beautiful package after nothing but mess for so many chapters. And it's like, only God.
Yeah.
Only God could do that. So as soon as Jacob gets done with the blessings and commanding his sons, he drew up his feet into bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. Like,
what a way to go out.
That is like, okay, now I'm good. He lifts it, and it tells you this because it's not like, oh, days passed. It says he lifts his feet up into bed and breathed his last. Like, I'm done, lift my legs into bed and gone. That's just, he was ready, and he was gathered to his people. So, pretty wild. You ever been around somebody who's died? Like, have you ever been there at the moment of death?
Not at the moment, but relatively quickly after.
Yeah. Did they seem ready? Do you ever notice like somebody's just ready to go?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was my grandpa, and I think he was probably ready for a long time.
There was Jacob just is like, it's almost like he's setting the time. Like, okay, now I'm good. And then he's gone. I remember my mom died of cancer a few years back. And I remember and as a pastor, you've seen and heard some things like this, but being next to her for, hours on end and watching her, unable to talk, unable to process. But like when she would be in her state, you would watch her. And she was real close, days away from death, but just break out in a smile and staring up at the ceiling, like seeming like she's looking into nothing, and just talking, just having a conversation. And you're like, what are you talking to? Like, who are you seeing? It always makes me wonder, and you hear this, that when you approach death, the veil between heaven and earth gets thin, and, God prepares you and gives you comforts or whatever. And it always makes you wonder, like, is she hallucinating? Is her brain, chemicals of
what
death,
part of this is real
or is she seeing something that I don't have eyes to see? And I tend toward the latter, right? And you hear that so often. You hear those stories so often. But I actually took out my phone. I'm not going to show it, but I took out my phone and videoed the latter half of it. Like, I missed the good part, but I still have it. Videos of her just smiling in the recliner, just staring at the ceiling, talking. And it's like totally oblivious to the fact that I'm even there. But it was a comfort, not only to her, but it was a comfort to me. It was like God was saying, hey, I'm ready for you.
Yeah, he actually prepares a place.
Yeah. And it gave her comfort to be able to let go and to move on. And you see Jacob there, who's like, all right, lift my feet. I'm ready to go.
His feels very much like that was the completion I was looking for. Great time.
I think there's something to that, being ready to die. I've heard people say it's important with somebody who's going through suffering or who's on the verge of death, like they need to feel permission to let go, because they'll fight. And, you don't want to leave your loved ones, and it's really hard. But one of the most powerful things you can do is to be like, I love you. You have blessed me so much with the ways that you've loved me and poured into me, but I want you to know you have my permission to go home.
Yeah.
It's powerful. Closure. Yeah. And I think Jacob felt that. Like, okay, I'm done. I feel good. I'm ready. So verse 50, it says, then Joseph, who's just seen his dad pull his feet up on the bed, breathe his last, and died, Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And you see this intensely emotional story that is played out. He's had 17 years with his dad since being reunited, but now he's gone, and you just see the kind of grief that Jacob once had for his son, now Joseph has for a dad, that he'll never get to talk to again. And he just sobs. I was going through this, and like when we came to the story, because we're so into Jacob's life and like studying all this stuff, like I actually like caught myself getting a little teary-eyed here, it's just so, crazy. But I love this quote about grief. Somebody wrote this in a book, said, grief I've learned is really just love. It's all the love you want to give, but cannot. All that unspent love gathers up in the corner of your eyes, the lump of your throat, and in that hollow part of your chest. And then I love this line. Grief is just love with no place to go.
And it's awesome.
So you have to give it to the Lord.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, and Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So notice who is not embalming him. It's not priests, physicians, right? So this is not a ceremonial Egyptian burial, but it is an embalming. He has his physicians do it. So the physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for it, for that's how many are required for embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him for 70 days. Now, we read that and we're like, wow, 10 weeks of mourning. This is really significant in the ancient world. And the reason why it's really significant, guess who you mourned for 70 days over?
A king.
Pharaoh, period. And here, what does it say? The Egyptians wept for him for 70 days, which means how much do the Egyptians revere Jacob?
Yeah, it made quite the impact.
Now, so this is the thing I love, because Jacob he's such a scoundrel throughout his whole life. Everywhere he goes, people want him dead or away from them, right? So, I mean, you go back to the beginning days when he tricks Esau. What does Esau want to do to him? Kill him. Then he runs to Laban and he spends years with Laban. How does he part ways with Laban?
Not on good terms.
Laban's like, don't come back into my territory. Like, here's a marker. You come over, no promises. Like, I want to kill you, but God made me not. Then you get to he goes to Shechem. How does that relationship end with these foreigners? Like, everybody's dead at the end of this. Every time Jacob has relationships outside of his own little tiny family, it always ends up in chaos and hatred. What happens here? Now that he's in the redemptive side of his life, when he dies, how do the Egyptians respond?
He was a blessing.
Oh, we're going to miss him. He was amazing. So you see the change that's made in Jacob's life? He doesn't die a scoundrel. They love him. They weep for him, not just like formal mourning, we're doing a ceremony. They weep for this guy for 70 days. So he undergoes the embalming process, which is step 1, removal all internal organs. We're just going to nerd out for a moment. Stomach, intestines, liver, lungs. They do the hook where they pull the brain out of the nose. Then in step 2, the body goes through this dehydration for 40 days with natron on, like it just sucks all the moisture out of you. 60% of your body weight is water. It pulls all that out. Then the body's washed, anointed with resins, myrrh, and oils, wrapped in linens like a mummy, glued layer after layer after layer. And after 40 days of dehydration, 30 days of mourning to 70 total, now all of a sudden, it's time to go. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, if now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, my father made me swear, saying, I'm about to die. In my tomb that I hewed out for myself in the land of Canaan, there you shall bury me. Now, therefore, please let me go up and bury my father. Then I will return. And so here you have Jacob's body then encased in a sealed coffin, transported to Canaan to be put into this tomb. And we're told, this is pretty cool, he's got all these royal dignitaries that are going to come with him. Verse 6, it says, and Pharaoh answered, go up and bury your father as he made you swear. So Joseph went up to bury his father. Now hear this. With him on this hundreds of miles of trek that you're going to be gone for a long time, went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his household, all the elders of the land of Egypt, as well as all the household of Joseph, his brothers, his father's household. Only their children, their flocks, and their herds were left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with them both chariots and horsemen. It was a very great company. You hear one of the things that jumped out at me is, when's the next time that chariots and horsemen are going to follow Israelites out of Egypt?
Oh, the Red Sea.
Yeah. Here they're going to honor Jacob.
Yeah, things change quickly.
400 years later, these chariots will be swallowed up in water. But this is a massive, massive state funeral for Jacob, with the total blessing of Pharaoh. It's just wonderful. And when they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they lamented there with a very great and grievous lamentation. And he made a mourning for his father 7 days. When the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning on the threshing floor of Atad, so now all the Canaanites, what's their impression in memory of Jacob?
Not good.
That guy?
Yeah, he destroyed everything.
You're upset about that guy? He says, this is a grievous mourning by the Egyptians. So the Canaanites are like, man, the Egyptians are they're wrecked by this. Therefore, the name of the place was Abel Mizraim, which is Egypt in Hebrew. It is beyond the Jordan. And so now, if 70 days, the period of mourning was reserved for Pharaoh, they just added 7 more days, which means Jacob is getting a greater burial, send-off, state funeral than Pharaoh does. He's got 77 days of mourning. The Canaanites are like, oh my gosh, these guys are like snot crying. They're out of control. Look at how they're like grieving like crazy. We're going to name this place after this level of grief. That's how much these people love Jacob. And that does my heart good for him. Now, here's a guy who's trying to win it all his life on his own schemes, ends up tumbling backwards into mess every single time. Everybody's out for him. Nobody likes him. His sons are against him. Everywhere he goes is against him. And then you get into these last 17 years of his life, and how's he sent off? He figured it out.
Yeah.
Everybody loves him. Everybody's just wrecked that he's gone. You see a picture of a redeemed Jacob, even though it doesn't tell us how he got there.
And do you think that Egypt was the first time where he didn't need to scheme because Joseph already had it all figured out?
It's a good
It
point.
was one when he was finally just like, hey, Dad, I schemed in a good way to fix all this, so now you can just receive.
Well, hear that. I mean, apply that spiritually to yourself. Like, if you can
Exactly,
trust that you're provided for, it makes you a better person. You don't have to scheme. I mean, and that's our reality is we have one greater than Joseph who's taking care of our every need. We don't have to scheme anymore. We can live in a confidence that will help our neighbors see us as blessings rather than cursings. So, thus his sons did for him as he commanded, for his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah to the east of Mamre, which Abraham bought from the field with Ephraim the Hittite to possess as a burying place. And after he buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers who had all gone up with him to bury his father. So, interesting note here. Remember, we're 17 years after they're reunited, which means we're 12 years after the famine ends. They go up to the promised land, all of them, and they all come back to Egypt. Why? You ever think, we've mentioned this before, but that's your home. Why are you coming back to Egypt? Famine's over.
Yeah.
Resettle. Egypt's comfortable. Yeah. And ultimately they stay there and their descendants get enslaved. Verse 15, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, it may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him. So they sent a message to Joseph saying, your father gave us this command before he died. Say to Joseph, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin because they did evil to you. Like, okay, Jacob wasn't a mute. If he really said this, he would have said this to Joseph.
He just did a lot of talking about what I think of the future.
Right? Exactly right. And so here you have the brothers that are like, yeah, we'll again, scheming. So it's like the spirit of Jacob is alive and well, and these brothers. And so they're totally lying, I think. I mean, possibly they're telling the truth, but that would be a weird thing for Jacob to omit. And so they're like, please forgive the transgression of your brothers, their sin, because they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgressions of the servants of the God of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Why do you think he's weeping?
I mean, this is kind of rude and harsh. Like, hey, you're not actually an honest man who forgave us.
Yeah.
That we just had Dad's protection. You were just going to wait until it happens.
Yeah. It's like I think he's hurt.
Yeah.
That he's done this kindness. They've been together now for how many years? 17 years. And it's like, they're still like, are we good? Like there's no relaxed trust yet.
And the lengths of which Joseph did to literally save them, set them up, move heaven and earth so that his family could be safe with him. And they're like, but you're probably not a good guy deep down.
I had the thought when I was younger, like when I would get into fights with my brothers, my parents would get mad and they would separate us and send us to our rooms or separate parts of the house or whatever. And it was like, apologize to your brother. I'm sorry. Yep. But then the moment they left again, it was like, am I about to get pounded? You know, and over 17 years, that's still the feel that they have. Like, okay, dad's gone. Am I about to get pounded? And Joseph hears this, weeps, and his brothers also came and fell down before him and said, behold, we're your servants. But Joseph said, this is the great climax of brilliant theology as well. Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? In other words, long before the commands of Moses, Joseph understands vengeance does not belong to me. If God needs you punished, it'll be God. Yeah. I'm not about to take up that cause. But as for you, you meant evil against me. The things you did were gross. They were awful. But God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So don't fear. I'm going to provide for you and your little ones. And thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And you just see like the character and the kindness of Joseph to forgive and to leave it with God and to trust that God, through all the muck and mire of our lives, in his sovereignty, is weaving together a beautiful story for us. Like, that is amazing. Even in the midst of pain, like even in the midst of still being doubted, like he's doubling down, loving them.
Yeah, and then right off, like, no, what you did was evil. I'm not just forgetting about that. Like, you did true evil, and yet God still did good with that.
Yeah. So in that vein, like that, you meant it for evil, God meant it for good. I want to read some people who can speak to that a little bit better. Johnny Erickson Tata was somebody who was paralyzed jumping into a pool, lost her ability to really do anything from the neck down. And she wrote this: he has chosen not to heal me, but to hold me. The more intense the pain, the closer his embrace. The greatest good suffering can do for me is to increase my capacity for God. Real satisfaction comes not in understanding God's motives, but in understanding his character, in trusting in his promises, and in leaning on him and resting in him as the sovereign who knows what he is doing and does all things well. That's Joseph. In the middle of the pain, I know you're drawing me closer to you, and the more I need you, the more you're there, the more I grow, the more my character improves. You are conforming me into your image, and if that's what comes out of this pain, it's worth it. And Sinclair Ferguson says this. I just think it's brilliant. He says, how can things be worked together by God for good? The answer is at hand. It's because God's ultimate purpose is to make us like Christ. His goal is the complete restoration of the image of God in his child. So great a work demands all the resources which God finds throughout the universe, and he ransacks the possibilities of joys and sorrows in order to reproduce in us the character of Jesus. There are some things in you that only suffering unlocks.
Yep.
The greatest blessings I have in my life almost all come from seasons of suffering. And I think that's true for most people if they're honest. And so Joseph recognizes that. Like, I didn't like this. It hurt. It was really bad. You meant it for evil. I don't love evil. Yeah. But God managed in his judo technique to make it for my good and for his glory. And so I can praise God for it on this side of it. To verse 22, it says, Joseph remained in Egypt, and he and his father's house. Joseph lived 110 years, another little thing. In Egypt, to live 110 years is considered a divine life, divinely blessed, right? You go back through history, there's 27 times in ancient Egyptian records where 110 years is described as a divinely favored lifespan of a person. And so just as one more like preaching to the Egyptian people, how old is he when he dies? 110, which is just awesome. That's God's goodness to him. Verse 23, and Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were counted as his own. And Joseph said to his brothers, I'm about to die. So here you have the 11th, right? He's the second youngest, first to die, which is interesting.
Is that a hard life?
He says, I'm about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old. Let's throw that in again. They embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. And there is the end of Genesis. And it's a cliffhanger. What's going to happen to those bones? Because even Joseph, as high as he is up in the Pharaoh level, all of Egypt, and he's over so much, even he's like, don't bury me here.
Why don't they just do it right then?
Why did they stay in Egypt at all?
Yeah.
I mean, what it's setting you up for is Exodus. Like, the answer is coming in the book of Exodus, where you're going to see what happens to Joseph's bones. But this whole story that starts right now is triggering the story of Israel that happens in the land of Egypt is the story of our salvation writ large. Except what it does physically there and historically there, God will do for us spiritually. And so there's a lot to learn. Like, we are born dead. We have bones. What are going to happen to these bones? Right out of the gates, like, it's setting up this crazy cliffhanger. And when you start in Egypt, you're going to start in slavery. Well, guess where we start?
Slavery.
Death, dead to our sins and trespasses, enslaved to sin. What is going to happen? How do we get delivered? The pattern that God will unfold in Egypt is wildly instructive for our lives here today to learn from him. So do leave your comments, but just know, like, you can already tell, like,
We kind of got to keep going.
do we just leave them on a cliffhanger? What happens to the bones?
I mean, they can read.
Yeah, I know, it's true. And if you are wanting to read ahead, Exodus 13:19 tells you what happens to the bones, and then Joshua 24:32 will also tell you where the bones land. We've actually driven by it. Did you know that? We've driven by Joseph's burial location. That's where we went to Jacob's well and drank the water there.
Oh.
Where Morgan was.
Jacob's well. I got that.
Hey, there you go. We got that there. But it's right. That's exactly where Joseph's
Why didn't we
bones-
stop there? That felt like a big moment.
Because it was a little dangerous.
Okay.
With the gunshots and celebratory gunfire.
Yeah, I remember it now.
It was time to move along.
Good look.
We got to drink from Jacob's well. It was good. But anyway, so here we close out. And again, what's your major takeaway from the book of Genesis? If you had to say, like, when you walk through Genesis, kind of particularly the patriarchs we're talking about, what is kind of the major thing that changed having gone a little bit deeper through the text of Genesis for you?
I think just for me, the one-liner from Genesis is now, after doing it like this, that God loves messy people who want the promise.
Yeah.
Which I didn't realize before. Just like, all these people are messy. Why choose Jacob? Like, he seems to just mess it up every time he does anything. But he's the one who wanted the promise.
Yeah. And the more you dive into it and the more you kind of like step into the story and try to imagine it coming into life, and you really do, you're like, why does God keep picking these people? And it makes you realize this is not a story that's detached from the ultimate and eternal purposes of God. Like, God is on a mission. That's the whole point of the gospel, is God is on a mission to redeem messy people, and he will not let them go. And he is faithful to them when they are not faithful to God. And that is a great hope. Like, if this is your foundational book you're learning, it's not the people who are the heroes.
Yeah, thanks be to God.
It is purely the mercy and grace of God that anybody has any hope of salvation. And when you walk through Genesis and you see how messy it is, it's like, oh, wow, if God would do that for them, you know.
And he did do that for them. So I can be confident he's going to do it for me.
There's hope for me. Yeah.
Amen.
Love this book. Anyway, I hope this has been a blessing for each and every one of you as we have walked through this. I think, leave your comments, but I think my preference right now is to go into Exodus, which I'm honestly like, Exodus is another one of those books. There's so much gold walking through that. So we hope that you'll stick with us as we go into wherever we go next. But we're going to be lifting up Jesus in any book we land, because this entire book that you're holding, every bit of it is all to exalt him and to show his love story for his people. It's pretty awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. Leave your comments and join us next time as we go into some other book. We'll see. God bless.